In 2025, mandatory paternity test is something that every man should be fighting for. One of the worst things that could happen to you or your children is to find out later in life that you are not their biological father.
When it comes to paternity testing, a lot of people like to stick their heads in the sand and make this about not trusting the mother.
The fact that you're even willing to have his child and you're going to now question my loyalty to you, like, oh, this pisses me off. Get rid of him.
You know you dealing with a level 50 Jezebel if she tries to use shame or guilt against you for asking for a paternity test. But there's a few of you ninjas out there willing to defend this BS. Y'all be like, oh shucks, baby, we don't need no paternity test. I believe all women because that's what a real man would do. I know you slept over your best friend Tyrone's house that night we had that argument about 9 months ago, but I believe that baby is 100% mine.
Meanwhile,
But the reality simply is, the consequences for men are a lot more severe than a bruised ego.
You have more than just a couple days in jail to worry about.
It's so easy for a man to be stuck paying child support for a kid that's not his these days.
Pay the $65,000.
Damn!
To support a child that isn't his.
For 10 years, Mick shelled out more than $100,000.
Damn!
Only to find out Lockie wasn't his son.
To around about $140,000.
Damn!
Wanted me to pay $64,000 for a child that's not mine.
He had to pay support for another man's children.
Let her pay for him. Let her get the man she laid down with to pay for him. He goes free.
According to statistics, 35% of men are raising children that they do not know are not theirs, and it's very likely that that number is much higher. Proper women don't mind taking a paternity test, so asking for one shouldn't offend no woman.
What woman, sir? This here is a hoe.
I never even slept with her. I got a lawsuit when I was young, and she basically just said, that's the money I'm gonna get, and she got it.
They don't really care about your condition, your situation, your circumstance. They just want their cash.
If you don't pay your child support, then you can be looking at a felony conviction. Felony conviction.
I'm getting garnished. I'm getting thrown in jail. I'm getting felony charges.
You have taken our lives.
I felt anger. I felt conned.
For a whole year, you basically just lied to me about the biggest factor of my whole life. Like,
it was suddenly like being hit by a sledgehammer.
And she said, I've been having an affair with a man from work. And she said, I'm pregnant with this child.
Ouch, baby. Very ouch.
Did you consider taking your own life?
Many times.
How many other men are you aware of who've taken their lives because of this issue of paternity?
Quite a few.
Really?
This is why the manosphere is so important. It's like a condom. It won't protect you from everything, but it will prevent the worst. If the great nation of Troy can fall over a bitch named Helen, then any man is subject to fall over a disloyal Jezebel. And if you a man that's currently in this situation, then you really need to be fighting for the retroactive reversal of child support payments.
What you talking about, Willis?
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I do believe that there's a few states that do have that. And if they do, that means that Jezebel has to pay you back for all the child support that you paid her.
Yes, boys, mandatory paternity testing. It has become a very controversial issue, since in general, men love it and women hate it.
And she shouldn't have to submit herself to a paternity test.
I will never ever give him a DNA test. You will need to take me to court.
She belongs to the streets. More proof that a Jezebel don't love nothing but her own self-interest. Only a psychopath or a narcissist would exhibit this type of behavior.
Now ironically, these same people that are demanding trust are only demanding it in a one-way direction. Since not only does the woman always have 100% information on whether or not there could be another man involved, while the man must simply trust.
It is a trust issue. And to me, that's a deeper concern.
This also gets compounded by the fact that if that trust was ever broken, it is the man who is now 100% liable to a massive financial burden. And ironically, those same women that want blind trust from men will tell other women to never blindly trust their husbands when it comes to the family finances.
What are some signs that you are the victim of financial abuse? He doesn't give you information about the money.
And not worry if you're going to be okay. So if that's having a bank account that they don't know about, or having money tucked away because it's money you made, that's what you need to do. And it doesn't even have anything to do with trusting a man. Your peace of mind, too, that you have that.
It's a trauma response when a person secretly goes through your phone or demands to know your location at all times.
Yep.
That's a response to being screwed over in they past. But these Jezebels don't want you to have that same peace of mind. Fellas, I need y'all to understand that there are Jezebels out there that will only deal with you because they know that you are a women's version of a real man. Oh, let's just believe all women. I say, oh, let's just believe all women.
See, funny how that works, huh? That women need assurances and peace of mind when it comes to money, but when the man wants peace of mind and assurances when it comes to his kids, then he's a piece of shit and you should divorce him.
If John was like, I'm absolutely getting a paternity test either way, divorce.
Divorce.
Bitch.
And this is why you shouldn't deal with single mothers, because they're not afraid to become single mothers.
He ain't lying.
One thing about a single mother is she knows that you will never talk to her ex, so you will not ever get the full story. And when you take them serious, not only are you fugazi and a clown, but you enable this type of behavior. I would like to know what makes you think that she won't do the same thing to your dumb ass. Oh yeah, that's right. You a real man. Now don't forget, fellas, that's what a real man would do.
This is the ridiculous nature of this debate, since the reality simply is, these are exactly the same situation, where one party controls all the information and the other party simply wants access to that information. And you can argue all day long that asking for that information is a lack of trust, just like you can argue that not willing to give up that information is a sign that you're hiding something. Now luckily, there are some women who do understand that in today's society, it is completely understandable that men want those assurances for the most important thing in their lives.
How do you know that a child that is birthed by a woman is in fact your child?
I do believe that maybe it should be mandatory, because as women, we would always know that that child is coming from us, right? How do you guarantee that that is that man's child? It's literally just our word.
And then give that man peace of mind, because you know what, with the statistics that have come out and the data that has come out with how many women cheat in marriages and how many women cheat in general, if I was a man, I would want a paternity test for sure.
See guys, there's still hope.
And like I said, a proper woman shouldn't mind taking a paternity test, so it shouldn't offend a woman.
What woman, sir? This here is a hoe.
The majority of women are shaming men for wanting paternity tests, saying it's a lack of trust. Those same women want complete access to your phone, and they want to know your location 24/7.
I have every passcode to everything of Tyler's. I have his location, all these things.
If your partner will not show you their phone,
they're hiding something.
And if your partner does not want to share their location with you, it's because they don't want you to see something. They're doing something suspicious.
If your partner doesn't have anything to hide, they're going to be like, sure, here, use it.
So what is it, ladies? Should husbands and wives simply blindly trust each other, or should both have complete access to all the available information? Clearly, women only care about full transparency when they are the ones who have to deal with the consequences of not knowing. And on top of that, in this entire debate, there's still one very important factor that's often overlooked, and that is the impact to children when families find out years later that the mother lied about who the real father is.
For all y'all that don't know, my biological mama was a Jezebel that got with a real ninja. And her real ninja was my biological father, and he stabbed her 4 times in the heart and forced himself upon her, which resulted in my black ass. She was hospitalized the entire time that she was pregnant with me, and I was adopted at birth by my current parents. a black couple. And I remember that my mama used to read me bedtime stories when I was roughly about 7 years old. She read me a bedtime story about adoption. That was the day that I found out that I was adopted. And let me tell you, it fucked me up bad. Now I want y'all to imagine being a kid and growing up attached to somebody, all to find out that they not your biological parents.
I find out that he is not my biological father. This obviously was devastating for me. It kick-started panic attacks and health anxiety.
I felt awkward, I felt ashamed, I felt that I was having an identity crisis, I had abandonment issues. It took me a really, really long time to really understand how messed up I was.
Ouch. Please drop a like on the video if you think that preventing paternity testing only protects the mother's ego and hurts everyone else, and comment down below what you think. By now, it's pretty obvious that lying to kids about who their real father is can seriously damage them for the rest of their lives, and it could also lead to a very terrible situation that people aren't even considering or discussing.
I was intimate with my half-brother.
Jesus Christ.
Weird. But you didn't know. We didn't know.
Yep, that happened. Then when I talk about mandatory paternity testing, I'm not talking about testing every single child that is born. Since if you and your spouse simply do not want that, then obviously the government should not be involved and forcing you.
Should it be forced? Should it be optional? Ooh, there's a lot of slippery slopes when it comes to privacy and your individual liberty.
I don't like the state or the government in my business, but when it comes to child support, you best believe that the state and the government is in your business. Fact. Paternity tests should be mandatory if a man is to be held to any financial responsibility. That's how I feel about it. Y'all let me know in the comments if y'all believe that paternity tests should be mandatory off rip, or only if the woman is seeking financial support.
Exactly. However, if any type of legal proceeding is taking place where the father is required to pay child support, facing jail time for refusing to pay child support, or has any other financial liability to the child or the mother, then I say let's first determine if that guy is actually the father.
But fundamentally, I do agree, there has got to be some kind of proof if you are going to indebt a man for 18 years, potentially more. This should be a mandatory thing.
Now, limiting or even banning DNA testing and hiding behind the excuse of supposedly doing it for the family's or child's best interest, like they do in France, is complete nonsense, since finding out the truth through other means much later in life doesn't just damages the family as a whole, but it can also severely mentally fuck up the kid as well.
That the man that I thought was my father is not my father. My whole life has been based on one big ass lie. And I know I can't go back and I cannot change things.
The Western modern Jezebel needs to be stopped. How many children needs to be traumatized for life before these laws begin to change? There is no downside to mandatory paternity tests because it would disincentivize the level 99 Jezebel behavior. And women witnessing other women pay back some dude that they frauded out of child support money would stop all of this nonsense immediately. It would be like that badass kid that's finally getting their ass whooped. Imagine all the pleasure that you would get from witnessing God's work.
Y'all busters can't catch me. Man, I need you. Who's gonna get you? We
But before we get into that and the more widespread insane paternity cases, I think it's important to highlight just how easily men can be locked in legally for child support, even when DNA testing proves that they are not the father.
Okay guys, the last and most common and by far what I consider to be the most dangerous scenario where you could be required to pay child support for a kid that's not yours is in the Title 4D child support scenario, the petition that the state is going to file, it's going to be a petition to establish paternity and to establish child support. So in that petition, they are alleging that you, the father, the respondent, are the biological father of the kid or kids that are named in the petition. And if you don't contest that, like immediately, and you're screwed, you're done.
And you can also fall into this trap dealing with a single mother whose baby daddy ain't on no child support.
What?
Fellas, don't fall for that okie doke. This is also why these Jezebel standards get higher after they become single mothers. He was broke with good digging stick and you the real man with benefits.
Now, critics and male feminists will say that it's all your fault and that you simply should have addressed this in the early stages when you had the chance.
Can you imagine?
Sounds like he's very insecure. I mean, definitely something that like toxic masculine, like I need to have progeny to like extend my seed type shit.
Yeah.
And it's like, what? Just stop being weird.
Beta male. However, what these soy clowns conveniently leave out is that many men were never even aware that all of this was going on, since it's very easy for women to scam the system.
Tons of cases where the mom who applied for the benefits puts her home address as the place where dad can be served, and then the process server comes, she accepts service. She says, oh yes, he lives here, she accepts service, right? And then throws it in the fireplace, burns it, throws it away. And dad gets a default, dad gets a child support order against him, and dad never knows that any of that happened until he gets pulled over like a year or two later for a suspended driver's license for unpaid child support.
And just like I said, a single mother without her baby daddy on the hook can run this same game on you. Fellas, you would be surprised the amount of information these women can get online from just your cell phone number. If you get caught shacking up with her and them kids, you gonna F around and find out that it ain't what you know, it's what you can prove. She's not incentivized to be honest with you if she stands to gain your ass as a form of passive income.
It's not what you know, it's what you can prove.
You see? Now it's very easy to tell men to just find a good woman and marry her so that you won't be dealing with all of this. But the reality simply is that the millions of men who had to deal with this all thought that their wives were honest, faithful, and trustworthy until they had their entire world destroyed.
I felt like I lost a lot. You know, I'd lost my wife, I'd lost the dog, our home, my parents-in-law, her family, and it felt like they'd just been snatched away, just came crumbling down like a house of cards.
But unfortunately, this is the reality that screws over millions of men around the world, since the problems with paying child support go much deeper than just paying for a kid that isn't yours. They will make your life an absolute hell by first setting a ridiculous child support amount that doesn't even make sense if you're doing proper child cost analysis.
What the other methods do is attribute expenditures to children which are not made out of pocket. It's a fiction.
Once the amount of child support has been set, it is often very difficult to get it lowered when the father is struggling financially, which has bankrupted many men and has even sent them to jail.
And this is what I was talking about in my last video about the Fair Child Support Reform Act. We know that Jezebels are evil enough to let a man go to jail over some false allegations. What makes you think that they not evil enough to let you go to jail over child support debt?
Let's take a look at this scenario. What happens if you are forced to overpay child support? You inevitably fall behind. Now there's back child support, called an arrearage. In many cases, arrearages have to be paid with interest, so that's even more money out of your pocket. When you cannot pay your arrearage, guess what? Your driver's license gets suspended. Now how are you gonna get to work? And speaking of work, when those taxes are taken out of your employment check every 2 weeks, you will not get a tax refund at the beginning of the year to get that money back because now you have that arrearage and you have the interest. So now that the back child support amount has grown and your license has been suspended, a petition for contempt is filed against you in court. Incarceration. This system is supposed to be about supporting the children. But tell me, how is having incarcerated parents in the best interest of the child?
It's not. But it is in the best interest of the state to let your ass go to jail because the prison industrial complex is a $1 billion industry. Fellas, I want y'all to remember these words as if they was the words of God. It is not your ability to pay, it is your obligation to pay.
So with the consequences this severe, it is truly insane how easily a man can be trapped into a financial obligation to a child that isn't even his. Which begs the question, how do you end up in a position of paying child support for a kid that you can definitively prove is not yours? Well, the problem lies in the current laws and how they are enforced. Because even though some viral clips and videos on social media give the impression that new paternity fraud laws have been implemented, they are somewhat misleading to how well they actually protect men. Since these laws only apply in a few very specific jurisdictions, and more importantly, they only govern new child support cases where parentage has not yet been established. And this is exactly where the problem lies for most men.
Number one, a lot of people don't understand the fact that even if they've signed that acknowledgement of paternity, that in and of itself does not give the father legal rights to the children.
Hold up. Wait a minute.
Even if they've signed that acknowledgement of paternity, that in and of itself does not give the father legal rights to the children.
Most men who are not married to the mother will simply acknowledge the kid at birth by signing some form of VAP, which is a voluntary acknowledgement of parentage. Now during this time, you are simply excited about having a kid and you're not really thinking about all the consequences of signing that piece of paper. Even though you become fully financially responsible for a child, when you sign a VAP in many jurisdictions, you do not get full parental rights over that same child.
No custodial rights are established by being on the birth certificate until an unmarried father goes to juvenile court and asks for visitation or custodial rights.
This is absolute bullshit and something I wasn't even aware of for a long time. But unfortunately, this is the reality that screws over millions of men around the world, since this doesn't just apply to the US. The Netherlands, for instance, only changed this ridiculous law as recent as January 1st, 2023. So any guy who signed a VAP in December or November of 2022 is still royally fucked, since the mother can demand child support without letting the father have access to the child.
You gonna learn today.
I know I'm preaching to the choir here when I say do not be a woman's version of a real man and let your girl shame you out of getting a paternity test. If your girl is willing to make you feel some kind of way because you asked her for a paternity test, then that is all the proof that you need that she don't give a damn about you pimping. And I ain't nothing but some random dude on the internet that don't even know you, and I can promise you that I care about you more than she does.
Why are you gay?
Pause. Fellas, if your girl is willing to act a damn fool and show you her draws, then you will not be wrong
sending her back to where she belongs.
She belongs to the street. Percocet, Miley Percocet, Percocet.
Hey, my name is Courtney Driscoll. I'm a family law attorney practicing here in Oklahoma. This was one of the most shocking things to me when I became an attorney, is that being a father doesn't just mean that you are the biological father of a child. Let's say that you've been living with a child for 8 years, holding them out as being your child, calling yourself dad, referring to them as your child. Then you take a genetic test, find out that you are in fact not the biological father. If you go to court and they have already adjudicated you as the legal father, or they're in the process of doing so, they may still adjudicate you as the legal father even with that genetic test. Or in some cases, we have a case where there's two potential fathers and we have a genetic test showing that one person is the biological father, but the other person, the one that's been involved in the child's life, the child's been living with that man, he's been holding him out as his child, and for all intents and purposes he's been acting as if he is his dad. He is the person that gets adjudicated as the legal father, even though this other person shows up with the genetic test and says, no, it's me. These are some of the craziest cases that we deal with as attorneys, but that's a huge reason why no, there's not mandatory testing, because whether or not someone is the legal father is not only dependent upon whether or not they are the biological father.